The year is 1905.
The sky above southern Tanzania burns red with fire.
Villages vanish under gunfire and smoke. Tens of thousands rise with spears and faith,
Believing sacred water can turn bullets into rain. It's one of Africa's greatest uprisings. And yet, the world barely remembers it.
What really happened in the Maji Maji Rebellion?
In the late 19th century, European empires carved Africa into colonies like pieces of a map.
To the east, the German Empire claimed vast lands.
What they called German East Africa, today's Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi.
For Berlin, it was a trophy.
For the Africans who lived there, it became a cage.
German rule began with promises of civilization, but quickly turned into forced labor, heavy taxes, and brutal punishments.
Cotton, not freedom, was the colony's main harvest.
Entire villages were ordered to grow it for export, often at gunpoint.
When people resisted, the Germans responded with the whip. And worse.
In the south, among the Matumbi, Ngoni, and Ndendeuli peoples, resentment grew like wildfire.
Fields that once fed families were now plantations feeding German profits.
Men were taken for months to build roads, carry goods, and guard posts they never believed in.
Women and elders starved as crops withered.
By 1905, whispers turned into anger.
Stories spread of a strange new power.
A spiritual force that could unite the people.
And protect them from bullets.
It came from a man named Kinjekitile Ngwale.
Kinjekitile was not a warrior, but a spiritual leader, a kind of medium between worlds. He claimed to have been possessed by the spirit Hongo, who revealed a path to liberation. He mixed water, grain, and castor oil into a sacred potion called Maji, meaning water in Swahili.
He told his followers, "This Maji will protect you. German bullets will turn to water."
For people who had suffered under colonial guns, this was not just magic, it was hope. Hope that faith, unity, and courage could break the German yoke.
Across the South, word of the Maji spread faster than any messenger could run.
Tribes that had once fought each other began to join forces. They were ready to fight, not for land or wealth, but for dignity.
In July 1905, the first attack began.
They burned German records and cut telegraph lines.
The uprising spread like lightning. Songea, Kilosa, Mahenge, all joining in defiance.
German officials, caught off guard, sent troops south.
But the resistance was fierce and organized.
Fighters armed with spears, bows, and faith charged into battle, chanting, "Maji, Maji."
At first, they won small victories. Overwhelming isolated German posts. For a moment, it seemed the prophecy might be true. But the German Empire was not known for mercy.
Governor Gustav Adolf von Götzen ordered a brutal counterattack.
Machine guns and rifles met wooden shields and sacred water. In battle after battle, German troops cut down thousands.
Food supplies were seized or destroyed.
The Germans aimed not only to crush resistance,
By late 1905, famine swept across the South.
The Maji warriors had believed in divine protection. Now they faced divine silence.
But to starve it out,
Kinjekitile Ngwale, the man who had started it all, was captured early in the rebellion.
the Germans accused him of treason and hanged him. But even in death, his message lived on. His followers believed his spirit still guided them. They fought on for months. Some say even believing that the Maji would work if their hearts were pure enough.
But no faith could stop machine guns.
By 1907, the rebellion was broken.
Tens of thousands were dead. Some say as many as 300,000.
Entire communities were gone, lost to famine and fire.
When the guns stopped, southern Tanzania was a wasteland.
German patrols found villages empty, rivers clogged with bodies, and fields turned to dust.
The rebellion had been crushed, but so had the colony's spirit of obedience.
For the Germans, it was a victory without triumph.
Reports described excessive measures. A cold freeze for what was, in truth, genocide by starvation.
But the empire moved on. And Africa's first great war of resistance faded into silence.
For decades, colonial powers wrote the history books. In those pages, the Maji Maji Rebellion was reduced to a native disturbance.
Its leaders were labeled rebels, not patriots.
Its tragedy was summarized in a single line.
But among Tanzanian elders, the stories survived.
They spoke of the bravery of the Matumbi, the unity of the Ngonis, and the faith that bound them all. They remembered how ordinary farmers, with no armies or flags,
stood up to one of Europe's most powerful empires.
Their courage became a seed planted deep in Tanzanian identity. Long after the German Empire fell, that seed would grow again in the struggle for independence.
When Tanzania finally gained independence in 1961, the Maji Maji fighters were remembered as pioneers.
Schools taught their story. Songs were written in their honor.
Kinjekitile became a symbol of unity.
His magic, not as failed magic, but as a metaphor for belief in one's people.
Modern Tanzanians call the rebellion Vita ya Maji Maji, the War of the Sacred Water.
It's a story of faith against empire, of hope against oppression.
It reminds a nation that unity, even in defeat, can shape a future. But beyond Tanzania, the world still barely knows their names. Why does history forget the voices that fought hardest for freedom?
To understand that silence, we must look at Europe's colonial mind. The German Empire, like others, preferred to remember its civilizing mission, not its crimes.
After World War I, when Germany lost its colonies, attention shifted to Europe's own ruins. The new colonial rulers, the British, also had little reason to highlight a rebellion that might inspire others.
And so the Maji Maji story remained buried. Passed down not in textbooks, but in whispers and songs.
It was history written by the survivors, not the victors.
Even today, few outside Africa know it happened.
Yet it was one of the largest anti-colonial wars ever fought on the continent.
Maji means water, but it also means life.
The people believed it could protect them, but in the end, it became a symbol of sacrifice. It showed that even faith can be weaponized by hope, and hope can outlive defeat. Historians now see the Maji Maji Rebellion not as a failure, but as a beginning. It marked the first time dozens of African ethnic groups united under one cause.
They fought not for one kingdom, but for a shared idea. That no empire had the right to own them.
That unity would echo through Africa's later independence movements, from Ghana to Kenya to South Africa. The Maji Maji warriors fought for a freedom they would never see, but their descendants did. Today, in the forests of southern Tanzania, traces of the war remain.
Rusty bullet shells, burnt clay, graves unmarked by names.
Researchers and descendants are trying to piece together what really happened
village by village, bone by bone.
Archaeologists find signs of destroyed settlements matching the old reports.
Oral historians record testimonies from families whose ancestors survived by hiding in caves or fleeing to Mozambique.
The Maji Maji Rebellion warns us about the dangers of unchecked power.
It shows how faith can unite, but also how desperation can blind. It reminds us that colonial history is not just politics, it's human lives, lost in the margins of empire.
When we talk about history today, we often ask who the heroes were.
But maybe the question should be, who was silenced?
Because for every story like this one, there are 100 others still waiting to be heard.
The Maji Maji Rebellion is not just African history, it's world history.
It's the story of what happens when ordinary people decide that fear is no longer stronger than freedom. Imagine a village in 1907, ashes where homes once stood, silence where songs once rose.
A mother fills a gourd with water from the river.
She whispered a prayer to the spirits of those who fought, then poured the water into the earth.
That water is the Maji, not magic, but memory. It flows through generations, carrying the story of a people who refuse to bow.
So the next time someone calls the Maji Maji Rebellion a forgotten war,
Remember, it's not forgotten. It's waiting for us to remember it properly.